All right, since we talking about the changing of the guard in the global Western world, let's keep the hits coming. De-Dollarization escalates. African economy needs more usage of Chinese yuan. This is from Zero Hedge. The world's push towards de-dollarization continues to accelerate as Americans go about their daily lives worrying about blasphemous comedians, participation trophies, and Kim and Kanye's traitorous behavior. From yuan-denominated oil futures and soon-to-be yuan-denominated metal contracts to Europe's decision to use yuan to pay for Iranian oil, and from non-dollar settlement systems from Russia-Chinese trade to Turkey's call for citizens to dump the dollar, it appears each action of the Trump administration deepens the distrust in the dollar hegemony, coalescing the world against Washington's reserve currency unipolar order. All of which leads to this. In a well-placed interview in China's Xinhua News, the official press agency of the People's Republic of China, officials from Africa are calling for more yuanification of the massive continent's economies. There has been a general consensus among some Eastern and Southern African countries that there should be more usage of Chinese yuan in the region because of China's growing influence in business and trade, a financial expert said Thursday. Executive Director of the Macroeconomic Financial Management Institute of Eastern and Southern Africa, Caleb Fundanga, said a forum for financial experts earlier in the week had agreed that there was a need to use the Chinese yuan as a reserve currency because China was playing an active role in their economies. It's not just about oil. There's a complex interconnection of geopolitics and geoeconomics between the two countries. The forum was attended by deputy central bank governors and deputy permanent secretaries of finance from 14 countries that fall under MEFMI. The general conclusion is that we should use yuan more because its time has come. We are doing more business with China, so it's natural that we use the currency of the country with which we are trading, just the way we have been using the US dollar and euro. We want to use the Chinese currency more in our transactions because it is to our benefit, he said. He said use of the yuan could protect the region from currency volatilities. The forum had also discussed the implications of using the Chinese currency and agreed that there was need for more information on markets and products in which it could be invested. Very true. At the moment, that information is not freely available, he said, suggesting further that Chinese financial experts should make the information available at such fora. In other words, the Chinese are kind of opaque about how they do their currency dealings. Well, probably for a very good reason. They don't want the U.S. to know how to attack them. Fundanga said the coming in of yuan would give the region more options for managing its reserves. In other words, the balance against the dollar. There's probably a lot of reasons why the Chinese really don't want the yuan to dominate. A lot of that stuff I might put on my Patreon because it fits there more, because it's with gold, dollar, and power. We're actually talking about balance of trade and this basically the dollar system that we're on. So it probably fits there more. I may put it here, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to put it here because most people aren't up to speed enough to actually benefit from it. The use of the yuan also came in handy because China was giving loans to the region and other African countries. In other words, your loans are now based in yuan because China is actually giving you the loans. So it doesn't make sense to get dollars to pay off Chinese loans. It's better to pay the loans off in the currency of which the loan originated. One of the issues we discussed, though, was that sometimes if you have borrowed from China, they want you to bill you in US dollars. Now we're seeing exactly what I just said that. Now we're saying that government must start discussing with Chinese enterprises and government so that we're billed in yuan, that we can pay you in yuan, because there is no point if we start keeping our reserves in yuan and are billed in dollars. It's no good, he said. Exactly. Chinese have a reason for doing this. Have a really good reason for doing this about building dollar reserves and getting dollars. But I don't know if I'm going to go into that in this video. You can figure that out for yourself. He acknowledged, however, that some countries were already billed in yuan for Chinese goods and services. Fundanga said there is also discussion on possible currency swaps like what China had done with Nigeria, where Nigerians are traveling to China could easily access yuan from their local banks. MEFMI argues that the bulk of reserves for most countries in the region are invested in U.S. dollars, yet their composition has not kept pace with the large shifts in the world economy. This is particularly so since China and India continue to shape global economic trends as they remain major trade partners for the region. MEFMI countries comprise Angola, Botswana, Burundi, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Rwanda, Swaziland, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, central to Eastern Africa, except for Angola. Angola sells a lot of oil, so I can imagine why they're in on this. Bear in mind that we began to warn of China's growing colonization of Africa back in 2010, noted China's increasingly militarization of Africa in 2015, and recent warnings from the U.S. generals that China and U.S. are on a collision course in Africa. It appears Donald Trump's old friend Xi is quietly making massive moves against the prevailing status quo. Is the tide turning on the U.S. dollar reserve status? Remember, nothing lasts forever. You're looking at the progression of the changing of the guard as far as reserve currencies. Even the World Bank's former chief economist wants to replace the dollar with a single global super currency, saying that it will create a more stable global financial system. The Chinese want that too. The dominance of the greenback is the root cause of global financial and economic crisis. Justin Yifu Lin told Bruegel, a Brussels-based policy research think tank. The solution to this is to replace the national currency with a global currency. And that is the end of the article from Zero Hedge. Our next one, since we're going to keep the hits coming, the world is creeping toward de-dollarization. Nevertheless, we can say with confidence that the reign of every world reserve currency has to come to an end at some point in time. During a changeover from one global currency to another, gold, to a lesser extent silver, has always played a decisive role. Central banks and governments have long been aware that the dollar has a sell-by date as a reserve currency, but it has taken until now for that subject to be discussed openly. The fact that the issue has been on the radar of a powerful bank like J.P. Morgan for at least 5 years should give one pause. Questions regarding the global reserve currency are not exactly discussed on CNBC every day. Most mainstream economists avoid the subject like the plague. The issue is too politically charged. However, that doesn't make it any less important for investors to look for answers. On the contrary, the following questions need to be asked. What indications are there that the world is turning its back on the U.S. dollar? And what are the clues that gold's role could be strengthened in a new system? The mechanism underlying today's dollar standard is widely known, and the term petrodollar describes it well. The system is based on an informal agreement the U.S. and Saudi Arabia arrived at in the mid-1970s. The result of this deal, oil and consequently all other important commodities, is traded in U.S. dollars, and only in U.S. dollars. Oil producers then recycle those petrodollars into U.S. treasuries. The circular flow of dollars has enabled the U.S. to pile up a towering mountain of debt of nearly $20 trillion without having to worry about its own financial stability, at least until now, which is why Donald Trump is probably doing what he's doing. For a long time, on the basis on which the global currency system rests was poorly documented. Finally, Bloomberg published a comprehensive article in May 2016, which provided a detailed confirmation of the agreement that was hitherto only known as a rumor. The fact that this article is published now also represents a subtle clue that there are simmering shifts in the global currency system. The trend becomes ever more tangible and can be described by the following term: de-dollarization. The world is looking for alternatives to the dollar and finds them more and more often. At the same time, big oil producers and the largest oil exporters have stopped accumulating U.S. debt securities. In one sentence, since 1973, the dollar standard has been based on the usage demand for dollars. They were needed. But when China and Russia find alternatives for bilateral trading activity, they need fewer dollars. The same applies to European countries which have adopted the euro since 1999. There have been many attempts by various nations to undermine the dollar's preeminence in recent decades. Some were nipped in the bud by U.S. interventions, such as the plan of Iraq's former dictator Saddam Hussein to sell oil for euros, or the rumored plan of Libya's eccentric ruler Muammar al-Gaddafi to issue a pan-African gold currency. Others are less well-known, but indeed continuing to bubble below the surface. For example, since 2008, an agreement exists between Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar, which provides for the new creation of a monetary union. The planned new currency, nicknamed rather unimaginatively the Golfo, the project is inspired by the European Currency Union, which is seen as a great success in the Arab world. According to an article by Telegraph journalist Ambrose Evans Pritchard, he inter alia quotes Naha Tahir, the CEO of Bahrain Gulf One Investment Bank. The dollar has failed. We need to delink from it. However, it appears the plan has been put on hold in recent years. As recently as 2013, a statement was issued according to which the common currency was going to be put in place by 2015 at the latest. Today, it is no longer even talked about. Moreover, other potential members such as the United Arab Emirates or Oman have so far failed to join the club. One should nevertheless keep an eye on developments in the Gulf. A clear signal that something is afoot would be the abolition of the Saudi riyals pegged to the U.S. dollar. As recently as April of this year, economist Nasser Said advised Middle Eastern economies to prepare for a new normal, and specifically to review the dollar pegs of their currencies. By 2025, note the year. 2025 keeps coming up. By 2025, it is clear that the center of global economic geography is very much in Asia. What we've been living in over the past 2 decades is a very big shift in the political, economic, and financial geography. I've been telling y'all that. While the role of oil-producing countries, and particularly Saudi Arabia, shouldn't be underestimated, at present, the driving forces with regard to de-dollarization are primarily Moscow and Beijing. Let that sink in for a moment. We want to take a closer look at this process. There exist numerous political statements in this context which leave no room for doubt. The Russians and the Chinese are quite open about their views regarding the role of gold in the current phase of the transition. Thus, Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, at the time president of Russia, held a gold coin up to a camera on the occasion of the 2008 G8 meeting in Aquila in Italy. Medvedev said that the debates over the reserve currency question had become a permanent fixture of the meetings of the government leaders. Almost 10 years later, the topic of currencies and gold is on the Sino-Russian agenda again. In March, Russia's central bank opened the first office in Beijing. Russia is preparing to place its first renminbi-denominated government bond. Both sides have intensified efforts in recent years to settle bilateral trade, not in U.S. dollars, but in rubles and yuan. Gold is considered important by both countries. The gradual move away from the USD to a multipolar monetary order has several important effects, which only make sense when viewed through this lens. Contrary to what is asserted in most mainstream reports, Oil producing countries are not so much interested in a much higher oil price in USD terms, but rather in competition for market share. They are increasingly able to choose in which currencies they want to trade. The most important effect has become evident since 2014. Two of the largest holders of U.S. treasuries, China and Saudi Arabia, have abandoned their support of Washington. On the other hand, oil producers have no interest in recycling their revenues as petrodollars. This process of moving away from the dollar, prepared by Europe and triggered by China and Russia, can no longer be stopped. As a supranational reserve asset, gold plays an important role in it. That might be from Zero Hedge, but I'm not quite sure. It'll be in the description. Since that was a long one, I have a third one, but I'm not going to read that one right now. I'll read it later. More for my white-leaning compatriots. From now on, if you guys are going to bellyache, I'm going to give you a double dose, okay? You can bellyache and cry and call bullshit. If you do that, I'm going to make the whole day about whatever it is I'm talking about. Now, if you don't like that the world is moving away from America and the West as far as Western civilization, which is something I said in various videos over the last 4 years, even before I came to have this IBMOR channel. In fact, 5 years for some people who have followed me on other channels. Carroll quickly predicted this back in 1966. That's why I named the book Tragedy and Hope. So we're talking about over 50 years. This is not a revelation. Now, the U.S. has tried to slow and stop this movement, this procedure, this inevitability for the last 50 some odd years. History cannot be stopped. It's not going to be stopped. The transition will happen. And I think the transition will probably happen faster than certain people want or certain people think. You can already see it. It's not a point where I have to come up with a theory. It's not a theory. It's a fact. It is what it is. Even black people can see the fact and that it's not a theory. I am not here to convince you of anything. I am here to make you aware. The newspapers and the headlines and social media will convince you of the fact, whether it's now or it's later. Either way, I really don't care which. Most people here, especially most vocal people here, think I give a damn about what you think. I don't. I give a damn about the facts. I am an amoral pragmatist. The fact is the fact. If the United States was winning and beating down China and Europe, China and Russia, I would tell you that because it would be a fact. If the momentum was going the other way, I would tell you that because it would be a fact. And when people comment on here, they tell me about their feelings and not facts. The facts are irrefutable. These are white people writing about white Western civilization. These aren't Chinese. These aren't black people. These are white people talking about the future of global trade and the global infrastructure. This is the white press actually telling you the truth. This is your future. All the phases that you need, that white people needed to dominate the planet, are now reversing the trends. You cannot reverse this. It is too late. If you wanted to reverse this, you should have started 50 years ago. There's an old saying in financial trading: the trend is your friend. You go with the trend. You ride the wave. Whichever the wave takes you. Now, you can go swim against the wave if you want to. I wouldn't suggest it, but hey, it is a free world and a free country. Go for it. I could do this all day. I could do this all week. I could do this all year. I'm only giving you a small little bit of the bitter dose or the bitter truth. A small little bit. A little tiny bit of castor oil and you guys are freaking out. This is coming. It's not even only coming, it is already here. Accept it or not, I do not care. But if you complain some more, You're going to get a dose not only more today, but more tomorrow. So if I were you and you're going to be a detractor, I would actually keep my mouth shut. The dollar is finished. The dollar was finished in 2007. They've been looking for a way to get off the dollar since then. Hell, if you read Gold, Dollars, and Power, they were looking for a way to get off the dollar since the 1960s, but they couldn't. But that day is here, and that day is coming faster than we think. In fact, like they say, 2025, we're going to see exactly how they get off, but they're going to get off the dollar probably by 2025. If not all together, the vast majority. And no war, no battleship, no aircraft carrier is going to stop that. The United States cannot fight the whole world. Europe cannot fight the whole world. The day of the musket and the cannon are over. Is what it is. But with that, I'm going to jump off of here. This is BGS out, and I will see you kiddies on the next one. Peace.